What's up, everybody? Let's get right into it. Ice niggas. Shout out to Ice all day. Ice niggas, what the fuck? Let's go. Yeah, that's right. Fuck around, get popped. If you don't want shit, don't start shit. Nostrils clear. Let's go.
Slip your brains out on my alcohol appetite niggas. Examine drug smuggling.
Capadonna. Yo, check out the rap kingpin. All right. I'm wildin'. But am I really? Okay. We're going to talk politics today, right? Shout out to Ronnie Raymond, my man. He left a comment. I wanted to address this a while back. And, you know, this is the one thing I love about y'all. I've always said you don't have to agree with me. I'm not one of those people that, I'm not a lefty. I don't force people to have my opinion. You're allowed to have your own opinion. You can disagree with me. Just try to be respectful. It's like anything, right? And bring receipts, of course. Receipts are always appreciated. Whitney would be proud. So, Ronnie had this comment, and I wanted to get to it because it's a good comment. So I'm going to read it real quick. Hey, Tochi, I promise this isn't a dig or me looking for a gotcha, but I wanted clarification on your stance on the recent ICE cases. I remember during the Drake K-Dot beef, you dropped a video saying, I don't care if Drake sexed the minors. That's for courts to decide, right? And not long ago, I told you about Netanyahu getting caught up in a corruption trial. And you said you had no thoughts on it because it was too local, which is true. I guess I'm curious as to why you're coming to the conclusion that Pretti was a terrorist before an investigation started and before more information was available, especially how you reacted to the two former cases, right? And I understand this is a whole different magnitude, but on the surface, it feels a bit hypocritical to not wait for the full story. Okay, shout out to Ronnie. I appreciate the comment. One thing you should know about me is I despise hypocrites. I don't ever want to be considered a hypocrite, right? Because to me, there's almost nothing worse than a hypocrite. The reason why hypocrites are so dangerous is because you don't really know what they think about shit. And typically, hypocrites have a hatred. There's something about them. They just hate. And so they're waiting for the right moment to take advantage of you, to kill you, to do something, right? And so that's why I'm very wary of a hypocrite. You know, like if you tell me you are a killer up front and that's what you do, I'll respect you more. I'll stay away from you, but at least I respect it more. As opposed to somebody who's like, I like to garden. And then when I turn around, they put a knife in my back. I'm not into that hypocrite shit. So anyways, let me address your comment real quick. So, the regards to the Drake and K-Dot beef, and this is actually kind of interesting given the Epstein interview that just came out or whatever. The truth is, I never really cared about the K-Dot, that back and forth when it came to the whole minor thing. And the only reason that stuff got traction, again, people don't want to talk about this, but Drake is Jewish. Jews killed children. It's, centuries, millennia-old blood libel. So that's essentially why that worked. And you're going to say, oh, that's a reach, but come on. A lot of people are, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but actually a fair amount of people are hateful and don't even realize that they're espousing hateful ideas or recycling old hateful shit that's been debunked millennia ago. And the point is this. If Drake actually was involved with minors or if K-Dot was involved with minors, how the fuck would I know that? Right? With regards to, unless there's actual evidence that is tried in the court of law. Other than that, it's just hearsay. And hearsay is just not that interesting to me. Right? I mean, that's really the bottom line. It's not even an interesting rap point. Right? Like, ultimately, when I listen, and I've talked about beef, diss tracks a lot, to me, diss tracks are much more important, or much more interesting when you diss the person's ability to make music well, right? That's the stuff that lasts the longest, right? When you look at the best diss records, it's always dissing, in general, the person's ability to rap, their approach to rap is whack, that kind of shit. So them saying, whoa, you're a pedo. It's like, well, okay, but you can't prove that shit, so who cares, right? It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't do anything for me, right? Right? Again, it's just hearsay. Now, if in fact it turns out that you are in fact, and there's actual evidence that you are this, then sure, that bar will hit. But until then, who cares? The Netanyahu thing is too local. If Netanyahu's corrupt, what does that got to do with you? Really and truly, right? A corruption trial within Israel. That's a separate country. What does that got to do with you, really? You know, and I always think it's interesting because people pick and choose what matters to them, right? So they don't care about Iran, but they suddenly care about the ins and outs of what's going on in Israel. That's you know, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, you could say, Tochi, you care about Iran, you care about Venezuela. Why don't you care about what happens in Israel? Well, I'll tell you why. Because ultimately, those things that are occurring in those countries sort of speak to a much larger issue, a larger problem. You know that I've been on here talking about the threats of Islam and communism. These are real threats. So that's why I talk about this when it happens in Venezuela, when it's going on in Iran now, free Iran, when they're bringing that garbage ass ideology into our countries. So that's a threat to me. Whether Netanyahu is corrupt in Israel doesn't really matter to me. Does that make sense? Because it's really internal political shit. Just like I don't really care about the political theater, the intricacies of political theater in, I don't know, Thailand? What's that got to do with me, right? But if Thailand as a country was exporting Islam and communism into my backyard, now I have a problem with that. Okay? Does that make sense? And now someone might say, well, you know, Netanyahu is exporting Zionism, whatever the fuck that means. But Zionism has existed way before Netanyahu, right? It's a thousands of old ideology. And it's very simple ideology. It's like, I'm Jewish, I have the right to live in my homeland. That's really all Zionism is. It's really that simple. So, I don't know. And Netanyahu's not going to be, like, I know that people want to use him as a lightning rod, as some, you know, convenient scapegoat, but it doesn't really work. It doesn't make sense. And typically, again, I understand the Free Palestine people, losers that they are. Their whole thing is that they say, well, we don't hate Jews, we just hate Netanyahu because he's corrupt. Or, you know, we don't really hate Zionists, or, well, they say Zionists now, they hate Zionists. But the point is, they focus on Netanyahu. But again, all that is a tactic. Because one way you can disrespect the people is to disrespect their leader, right? I mean, this is basic. So again, I'm very good with Islamic and communist doublespeak, comrade speak. I understand when they say certain shit, I know what they're really getting at. They're saying fuck the Jews, right? And I'm just not with that. I'm not with that. I've told you for many reasons, aside from the fact that it's evil, and hating someone for their ethnicity is evil, right? This is just basic. So aside from the fact that that's just pure evil, the other side of it is that when you allow hate like that to fester, it will come to black folk. It already is, sadly. Just the other day, I saw something here in Toronto where there was somebody who had made anti-black threats to some individual. I wish I could find the article. I don't know. It's a local thing, but they're getting bold, and they will get bold. That's my problem. People that hate Jews hate blacks. It's literally one of the most basic things in life, because that ideology at its core is corrosive. Because at the end of the day, if you hate one ethnicity for who they are, why not hate all of them, right? Who are the two most hated groups of people arguably on the planet? Jews and black folk. So anyways, that I hope, you know, answers your question. But since we are talking about this, I want to talk more about the left in general, okay? And I had mentioned the Free Palestine. So I went to a rally yesterday because you had talked about Pretti, right? How did I know that Pretti was a terrorist before the investigation started? Because I'm very familiar with lefty tactics, agitators, criminals, because an agitator is essentially a criminal. I understand their behavior. I understand that what's happening in Minneapolis is not protests, right? These are agitators, insurrectionists, some of them borderline domestic terrorists, who are trying to cause insurrection in the country. If you think it's protests, you don't understand respectfully what a protest is. I've been to many protests in my life, right? I happen to be interested in politics, and I like to support people. And I'll give you a perfect example of what a protest actually is. So this last weekend, there was a massive, and I mean massive, protest in Toronto for the Iranian community, free the Iran community from Islam, okay? Now, this is me right there, so you got the receipt. Shout out, okay? When I tell you that there were easily 100,000 people there, if not more, like, it was insane, okay? I love this. Fuck your selective activism. We'll come back to that. I took some pictures. This is my Instagram account. So there were lots of people here, man. This is not some small shit. Javid Shah. So, and you'll see here also, the Toronto police, they're saying 150,000 demonstrators and 0 incidents. Zero. Look at how many people are here. There are so many fucking people that came to this thing. 0 incidents? You've got over 100,000 people and not one incident? You know why? Because that's an actual protest. Protest means peaceful assembly. Okay, you let people know ahead of time, hey, we want to do this protest to show support, real activism. People come out and they have signs and they peacefully assemble and let their opinion be heard. That is a protest. What you are seeing among the modern left, in a lot of cases, is not protest, but pure agitation. Okay? Now, an agitator is going to show up, destroy shit, fight, cause conflict. And I've been at a lot of these. I've seen the pro-pallies up close. I know how they behave. You bring even 10 pro-pallies anywhere, you're going to have some sort of incident, because that's what they do. At the end of the day, they are not protesting anyone's rights. They are there to destabilize. That is what they do. Okay? How do I know this? Well, I recommend that you watch this video. Okay? Specifically about whether I should leave Minneapolis. I think this is an excellent breakdown. This is kind of like a breakdown similar to, well, remember when I did this video about Kendrick Lamar and the 7 types of propaganda? I always like when people intellectualize certain things, because you have to understand the playbook is not new. Okay? So Nick Freitas gives a breakdown on, I think it was something like the textbook for radicals written by Salinky, right? Salinky was apparently some sort of political theorist. Salinky, writer. Was he the writer? Let's see. No, that's not it. Let me see the video, because he does mention specifically the left's tactics. Saul Alinsky, sorry, my bad, from Chicago. There we go. Again, none of these things are new, my man. You know, again, I don't want to go into it too deep, because I think you should actually watch the video, and he goes step by step in the playbook. But the point is that a lot of people, I would say the modern agitating left, they go by certain things, right? They typically cause violence or they incite violence, and then when violence occurs in response, right, they have a camera ready, they have the spin ready to agitate and say, oh, well, you know, oh, this person acted unfairly, they need to back off, right? It's the same old playbook. The problem with this stuff is that ultimately, when you look at someone like a Pretti or a Renee Good and really all of these agitators, is that they're not really consistent with their logic. And this is really my pet peeve, and at the core of why I'm essentially not a left person anymore. Because the modern left has really bought into, again, these sort of Islamo-Marxist ideas. They're not new, right? They're not really consistent, right? I was talking to a friend, I would say an acquaintance of mine, and we were talking about the Don Lemon thing. And he had posted, he was like, I need someone who likes Trump to explain to me why Don Lemon is arrested. Isn't it against the First Amendment is he just rounding up people because he's authoritarian? I'm like, no, because Don Lemon broke the law. Like, that's why he got arrested. And he was like, what do you mean? And so I said, well, they stormed a church. It's illegal to storm the church for protest purposes. If you're asked to leave, you should leave. And if you decide to stick around, that is literally violating the FACE Act, the Klan Act, etc. Right? And so my lefty friend, or I should say far lefty friend, said, you know what? Okay, you're right. They did break the law. And I'm cool with that. And I was like, whoa. But you know what? He said the quiet part out loud. He's like, I'm cool with that. Some laws are meant to be broken. You can break the laws in the name of democracy. Haven't you heard about that? I'm like, yeah, that's called terrorism. Because at the end of the day, you're saying that it's not virtuous to have this law in place at this particular point in time, but that's your perspective. But the point is, you're now going to impact your perspective and force me, I might just be in church worshiping. You don't think it's virtuous for me to be there, and you've decided you're just going to break the law to fit yourself, and I'm supposed to be cool with that? Do you not understand how evil that logic is? Rights apply to everybody. They don't just selectively apply when the fuck you want them to apply, right? Because this is the basis of democracy, law, and order. When I talked about the whole thing with Alex, well, I don't know if I went into too much detail with Alex Pretti. I knew what it was right away. But the point is this. Alex Pretti has rights. Renee Good has rights. I've never said that they don't have rights, right? They're human beings. They're citizens of the United States. So as citizens of the United States, they have certain rights. Absolutely. Pretti has the right to show up with a gun. It's the Second Amendment. No one said that he does not have the right to do that. I might not like that. I think it's a bad idea to show up to a gun with a gun to a protest. But ultimately, he has that right, right? Pretti has the right to not be, unfairly beaten on by police. Of course that. However, Pretti does not have the right to assault police, which is obviously what he did repeatedly. We've seen this, right? You don't have the right to obstruct law enforcement because now you're trampling on the rights of others. Because again, the ICE agents have rights. The Border Patrols have rights. The American public that voted for ICE to be enforced, right, have rights. So when you start agitating, you are actually shitting on the rights of others. But the left don't look at it that way. And that's why I say, fuck them. It's that simple. I just can't. If you're not consistent, I can't do it. Lastly, I'll end on this note because I think this is really interesting. Peak hypocrisy. So obviously you've heard about this clown. I don't know anything. I don't know a song of hers. I don't think she's very talented, honestly, but, to each his or own. Maybe she does have some talent. I don't know. I think I've tried to listen to one song and she was, that demoralized shit that's hot with the youngins, right? She's, flavor of the month, weirdo type. Okay, fine. But as you probably know, she talks about, stolen land. There's no such thing as illegal on stolen land, right? This is that Islamo-Marxist argument. I've heard this before. But it's like, okay, well, if you don't think there should be borders and you believe that all land is stolen, then your land is also stolen because you have a mansion that sits on literally indigenous land. Do you want to return that shit? Are you okay with the Native Americans coming through and just hanging out in your mansion? No, of course not. Of course you're not. Again, this is peak hypocrisy. Wine for me, but not for thee. And frankly, these kind of individuals are very dangerous, especially when they enact things or they're in the political machine and they're able to actually do things. This is a very dangerous kind of mentality. And I can't respect that shit. You either respect the law and the law applies to everyone, or you don't respect the law and you can go to places where the law is not respected. But again, you won't do that. And this is the typical Muslim or communist. What they do is they're parasites. It's a parasite idea. Look, listen. I've read enough, watched enough about Islam Marxism to understand how they think, right? Because they know deep down their ideas of failure, they come to places that are working and they invert them. That's just what they do, right? Communism on its own will never build anything. It has to come to a place where things are already built and then invert it and take that shit. It's the same thing with Islam. Islam, if you look at the Muslim Brotherhood, I can't remember, it was the writer, very famous writer from the Muslim Brotherhood. Oh, jeez. I'm all over the place today. But what the hell was the famous writer from back in the day? I'll try and see if I can find this. Here we go. Sayyid Qutb. Right. He wrote Milestones, okay, which is the definitive text for radical political Islam. There's no such thing as radical political Islam. Islam is political. It's just Islam. But the point is, the idea behind Milestones, and I saw someone very smart talk about this, is all these ideologies, totalitarian, subversive ideologies, they require an already existing civilization that works. And they come in and invert. Right? And so ultimately, I don't have time for that. I don't know if you do. If you have time for that, that's fine. But I don't have time for that shit. Okay? You're not going to come in and destroy my civilization with your Looney Tunes ideas of murder and violence and envy. I don't have time for that shit. So, my man Ronnie, I hope I answered your question. Just some quick political shit. Stay woke. Don't let these people fool you, man. And I will say very lastly, I saw a very interesting comment on this. by the way, all this agitation that's going on, I obviously blame really and truly the political elite. You got your Waltz, Tim Waltz, all those people in Minneapolis who are trying to distract from fraud, right? That's just what it is. You'll notice that all this ICE stuff started getting out of fucking hand the moment Nick Shirley exposed that there was billions of fraud going on. As I'm sure you guys have heard about this signal chat going on in Minneapolis, it turns out that quite a few state officials are in these signal chats who are deliberately impeding law enforcement, federal law enforcement. So the corruption goes very, very deep. It goes super deep. It's not just the fraud aspect of it. It's also the fact that, again, and this is another political theory that I guess we can discuss. You can put in the comment section. But the other issue is that you could argue there's quite a bit of voter fraud, especially on the left, who are using illegals, farming them essentially for their votes, right? And the moment you start having some of these people get deported, lots and lots of illegals, because y'all have what, like close to 20 to 30 million, right? This is average on our estimate. You have a lot of illegals in your country. You start deporting some of these illegals, and some of them are voting for sure illegally. You start deporting them. Some of these blue states will start losing seats because their populations will go down, right? And again, there's a lot of political machinations to this kind of shit. A lot of people benefit from the chaos, and that's why, again, I try to look at the bigger picture. That's all I'm saying, right? Try to look at a bigger picture. Try to have some sort of objectivity across the board. Because like I said, do I think that Pretti and Renee Good should be killed for agitation? Absolutely not. I've never said it's okay to kill someone. But that's, again, that's essentially implying that there was murderous intent, which is ludicrous. Because that's not what happened. In both of these situations, it was essentially a consequence of them agitating and being violent. And in the moment, they presented a threat to the agents that were there, and they have the right to defend themselves. Again, this is basic shit. Just as you have the right to try to kill me, I have the right to try to kill you. If again, let's just keep this stuff basic. If that's what you want, you want it to be okay for an ICE officer to go out and just kill, for an agitator to just go and kill and run over law enforcement, then you should be okay with ICE also killing protesters, agitators, or whatever you want to call them, right? But again, you won't be consistent. And this is my point. Consistency is what matters. And if you don't think that the modern left are literally agitating and trying to find crash test dummies like Pretti and Renee Good to go out there and essentially kill people or get people hurt for political means, you're not paying attention. It goes right back to Salinky's Rules of Radicals. Watch this video. This is some real smart shit. It'll really open your eyes to a lot of the playbook. Love y'all. Peace.